Welcome to Khetz tutorials, and in this video I'll be doing question 32 from 1.3 exercises in geometric calculus. So here we're given two functions f and g, and we're asked to compute each of these, starting with the a, where we're asked to add the two functions. So we're asked to add f and g. So let's add f and g and see what we get. So we're going to start with f as we're given here, and we're just going to add it to g. Okay, and here the domains will be as follows. So this can be anything, but it should not be negative. So 3 minus x should be 0 or positive. And if you work this out, you get 3 greater equals, because we don't want a negative number below the square root sign. So 3 will be above this. So in other words, x is less equal to 3. And we can also compute the domain according to this other one on this side over here. And that would be this here has to be greater or equal to 0. And this here is the same as us having a difference of squares. So x minus 1, x plus 1 greater or equal to 0. So these form now a critical point. So you have a critical point minus 1 and another one at 1. So you want places where these give us positive results. So you're going to pick a number which is to the left of minus 1. Let's say minus 2. So minus 2 minus 1 is 2 plus 1. That is minus 3 multiplied by negative. So that then gives us a positive result. Okay, so on this side we have a solution. So I have a solution on this side. Then we're going to look at a value in between, let's say 0. So if you substitute a 0 in there to see the sign that we get, then that is negative. So that in that portion you don't have a solution. And let's pick a number which is greater than 1, which is another critical value that we're going to have. And if you look at this, we have, let's take 2. So 2 minus 1, then 2 plus 1. This gives us a positive. So on this side, we also have a solution. Another way that you could have used to find these answers is if you had drawn a parabola. You can see that our a is positive, it's 1, so a parabola would look like this. So you're just going to look at the portions which are greater or equal to 0. And as you can see, it's just this portion and that portion. And those portions are described by x less equal minus 1, or x greater equals to 1, or you can do this number line method which I just did now. So this would be your domain, and looking at this, we have to combine it. This one says less than 3, this one says less than minus 1. So 3 would be here, minus 1 would be all the way there. Then we also have a 1 over there. All right, so let's see what happens. So the 3 would be here actually, and the 1 would be somewhere there. Okay, so let's fix that. Our 3 will be here and the 1 will be here. So one part says x less equal to 3, which is all of that. Another part says x less equal to minus 1, which is all of that. Then another part says x greater equal to 1, which is this part. Okay, so we're now going to take the parts where these things overlap and give that as our domain. The domain will be x as an element of minus infinity to minus 1 included. So from the left until this point, we have an intersection. They agree, or these domains agree with each other. But in between, only one of them exists. So we're going to ignore that part and look for another part where they both agree, which would be this portion here. And at that portion, we have 1, 2, 3. And after 3, this just goes on, but it's by itself. So we're looking for portions where the domains of each of these functions overlap. And these are the two portions where they overlap, and that would be your domain. So we don't want these portions to be negative. That's how we got to such a domain. And the same thing applies when we move on to the next question, which just asks you to subtract these two functions. The difference would be that you'd have a negative over there. So for the first three questions, where you just have addition, subtraction, and multiplication, the first one would look like this with a plus, the second one would have a minus, and the next one would just be you multiplying these two like that, on whichever format that you choose to use. But this will be the domain for the first three cases. And the only change to the domain will be as follows when you now come to the last one. So when you get to the last one, this is how your domain would change. So here, you're going to have f at the top, and at the bottom, you're going to have this, which is g. So this is f of a g. So the only change is that now we don't want this to be 0. Remember, when we found the domain, we calculated it like this with an equal to 0. We don't want it to be 0 now because this will give us division by 0 if you have that. So the only change would be that this will not be greater than 0. So when you work your domain out, it should still have the same values, but now your domain is from minus infinity to minus 1, and the minus 1 is not included. Also, your 1 is also not included, but the 3 is still included. So you'd work out the top part the same. So this is how you'd work it out to find the domain. Then the bottom part would look like this. And since that does not have an equal sign, that is why these portions have round brackets instead of square brackets now, because they're now not included. But everything else stays the same. So the only difference between the domains of the first three and the last one will be that the -1 and the 1 are now not included.